Now continuing on LyX, I said very little about the math mode earlier. So here you have this button that toggles the menu bar for math, and this is just to enter math mode. So this can be inline. In particular, a formula might be something that doesn't need to be as a display formula. But if you have an equation like that and you look at it and you see how it looks and you find that, say for instance, the font is too small, then you can just go in there and make it in display. So, or you can bring it back in line. So of course, whether it is inline formula or in display formula is your choice. If I leave it like that and I don't give it a name, you see that this formula is not numbered, unlike these two here, simply because there is no label, so it's not numbered. But I can right click on it and add a label, or let me go inside, or I can number the whole formula. Sometimes you have environment that allow you for multiple lines, so you can number a particular line or each line. And you see that when you are in math mode, you can couple things with computer algebra system, if you have one installed on your machine, to do direct calculations. Okay, now what I want to talk about is index and table of contents. So these are things that are very easy to handle automatically in LyX. So for instance, if you want to create an index, all you would do is use this button here to insert an index entry. So for instance, if you want to define definition, so I used emphasize mode to write that, and I want an index entry for definition. And here you want to have an index entry for LaTeX and an index entry for LyX. And here we're going to give a name to this CRM. So what I did here is right click here, and it gives me some options. In particular, there is additional CRM text, and I'm going to call it the good CRM and add an index entry for that. Okay, so I have these index entries, and I can hide what's in the box for the index entry. How do I insert the index? Well, it's pretty easy. Usually you put it at the end, but you could put it somewhere else. You go in Insert, and in the list you can have a table of content, list of algorithms, of figures, of tables, index, nomenclature, BibTeX bibliography. We're going to talk about that in a moment. So let's add the index, for instance, and generate the document to see what it looks like. Okay, so now you see that I have an index with my various entries. Of course, they're all on page 1 because I have just one page, but let me show you on a larger document. Before I do that, before I show you on a larger document, one thing I want to point out is that when you go in the settings of the document and PDF properties, you can use hyperlinks. and let's say color the links. And so what that does is that when you generate the document itself, instead of a plain PDF, it generates a PDF with links. So for instance, here I can click and go back to the page for the index entry, and here I can link to formulas or theorems. So here you see that when I click on the link, it puts the thing I refer to at the top of the page. Okay, so this is just to show you some of the useful things if you create electronic document. Of course, for document that you're going to print, it doesn't matter. Okay, so this is for the index. Now we have a structure. Of course, you might want to generate a table of content. Usually you would do that at the beginning, so I'm going to do insert list table of content, save, and generate the document. Okay, and so now I have a table of content, and this is also, because I used the hyperlink option, this is also hyperlink, so I can go directly to the index and back to this. Okay, so you see that this is very easy to create, and of course if I start moving around the structure, this is going to be reshuffled accordingly and with the number of pages created accordingly. So for instance, let me show you maybe a more larger document, some lecture notes I am typing for one of my classes currently. Okay, so what happened here? I think I got the wrong class by playing around before. So while it's generating the document, of course it takes a little bit more because it's a larger document. You see, okay, here we go. So let me go to the first page first. Okay, so you have a title page, and then table of content with links to each section. A particular formula, of course, can be linked to, or a theorem can be linked to, and you see that, for instance, a proof environment is generated automatically, so the proof starts here, it stops here, and all of this, the style for the proof, which is different from the style for the main text, or the style for the theorem, all of this is handled automatically by picking the class, the way things are, the type of numerotation, even though you can change it, and so on. Now you may see in this that I have some figures, so let me, and some tables. Maybe let me say a few words about these. Before I move away from this document, let me point out that when you are in a larger document like this and you're looking for a specific thing, you might look for a specific equation or theorem through label and references. So now I have the table of content, of course. Branches I will talk about later. I can look for all equations, footnotes, which I will talk about later, graphics, so these are all the pictures, index entries, because now I have an index, so I can go, say, for the torque of a force or something like that, or label and references, and you see that here you have kind of a jungle of things, equations, propositions, examples, and you can sort it if you want, so that you have all the equations and then all the propositions, all the theorems. So this is easier to find something. Let's say proposition bounded variations. Okay, yeah, I have found it. So in a larger document, it's very practical to have this outline here. And again, you can reorder things in all these things. Okay, so I was talking about pictures. So let me draw a graph, let's say a very simple one, and take a screenshot of that. And then, so this is sent to my clipboard, and then I'm just going to paste it here. And it gives me a dialog box to save it, because any figure is going to be a file that is called by LyX. So let me call that sine curve. Okay. Then when I click on the picture, it's going to open this dialog box. So you have the file, you can browse to change the file. Typically you need to rescale this. Let's scale it to 50%, say. And all these things are a little trickier. Most of the time you don't really need any of this. So here I have a sine curve, and here it's not centered. So if you want to center something, one way to do that is to right click and go in paragraph settings and then choose to center it. So the problem here is that now I have trouble to refer to this picture because you see that I cannot put a label on this. Let me show you first how this picture appears. So here near the end. So okay, here I have a picture, but I cannot quite refer to this. Now what I can do is take this and put it in a placeholder for pictures, which is this insert figure float. And now the figure is automatically gets a number automatically, so it's in the section 5 first figure, and then I can give it a name, caption of some sort. The caption of course can contain formula, whatever, and it can have now a label. So this is a figure, and this is a sine curve. Okay. So now I can refer to it as figure, and then use again cross-reference here, and it's a figure. When you have a lot of references, you might want to use a filter. So for instance, I know that it's a figure, I might filter with things that start that way, and then I have only one choice. Okay. And so now, if we look again at what we have, now the picture appears this way, and you see that here it's at the top of the page rather than in the place where it's supposed to be. This is because it's with the float mode, where it's going to put it in the best place in terms of occupying, in terms of the layout. So it floats. It's okay because it's a numbered figure that you can refer to, but you might want it in a specific place. So, So you might right click on this and look at the settings for your figure. And here you have placement options, where instead of the default placement, you ask it to be at this place, specifically at this place. And then you see that it gets back at the proper place. But of course it creates some more empty space here, right? So you have less optimized use of this space. Okay, now you see that here I have this part that is obsolete, and I might delete, or if I want to somehow keep track of it, I can put it in a node. And so these nodes are something very practical. I will talk more about it in a second. Of course, in a node you can put anything. You can have environments, you can have all sorts of things. These nodes are in the LyX document, they are not in the document that is produced. So these are nodes for yourself in the document. You see that they are not in the output. If you want nodes in the output, there's a couple of ways. You can have footnotes. Let's call that footnote 1. Okay. Or a margin node. So here we have let's write in the margin. Okay. And so this kind of nodes on the other end, of course, appear on the output. So you have here a footnote, which is again hyperlinked if you have the hyperlink option. And then the margin node. Here, of course, my figure is too big and goes outside of the standard margin. Okay, so you see that you have these various types of nodes that you can use. Now, see in the table of content, in the outline, now we have table of content, equations. We also have footnotes, graphics, figures, which are two different things, where the graphics are not in one of these float figure environment. And we have marginal nodes and nodes as well, which these nodes again are for yourself and do not appear in the document itself. Okay. Now, something very important is not just cross-referencing, but bibliographical references. So let's start first by looking at a document that we already have used and that already has references and so on. So you see that references, let me go to the end of the document first, and you see that you have a BibTeX generated bibliography. Refers to a particular bibliography file, and then you have the style of the bibliography. And you can add the bibliography to the table of content if you want. Okay, so what does that look like? This should be commute. And this should be convergence. So if we look at the output here, you see that the bibliographical references are just by number. This is a style for the AMS. And at the end you have a list of references with a specific format that is again the format for the this plain format. Now let's look at what happens if I change the bibliography style, say to APA-like, for instance, to go for something that is not the standard mathematical way. There are not many different styles, right? But the point is you shouldn't have to reformat by hand your bibliography. Right? So now I change the style for my bibliography. and we're going to see what kind of output we get. And you see that now they appear as author and year, and this is the way this is now that the references appear. So it's automatically changed in the text and in the references. I will give you maybe one more example to see that you have very different kinds of styles. Let's take the classic style, for instance. And you see that you have again author and year, but now you see that you have very different kind of, instead of having the title either in italic or without emphasize, depending on the type of choice, you have this type of old school quotation marks. So all of this, again, the reformatting should be taken care of by picking the right style, and very often when you submit to a journal, this is specified, and this comes with the document class. The fact that it's available comes with a document class that you can access from the journal. Okay, so that's for the style of bibliographies. Now, how do you create this bibliography? How difficult is this? Well, let me say I want to cite a particular paper. Let me open a browser, and I'm going to look for, let's go to Google Scholar, and look for an article, I don't know, on compactness, say. And I'm going to take the first article I find here. Now, this is not what I want. I don't want to go here. I want to cite it. And here you see that you can get the citation in different formats: MLA, APA, Chicago, or BibTeX. BibTeX is what I want to use. Okay, so I get the format for BibTeX, and here I have BibDesk, which is also a freeware, something that you can download. And I'm just going to take this and put it in. And so BibTeX process it. And I'm going to save this. Of course, this is a new database of references, but typically you're going to have one file where you have all of your references, the things that you refer to on a regular basis, and then when you use it, you just call this particular database to pick references from. So in this case, I'm going to save that. As say bibliotribe, to replace this. Okay. So now I'm going to add a BibTeX bibliography.